Questions today with Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Coach, your red zone offense has been very efficient this year. I think you guys are first in college football in scoring touchdowns in the red zone. I know that was an area last year maybe you guys struggled. What has it been? Will and the RPO, Chip's influence, just what has really been the reason?
I think the execution's been good. I think Will's ability to run and some of the throws we've made has definitely made a difference there. But it's going to be important this week. As you know, you got to score touchdowns in the red area. We got to stop them in the red area. It's something we typically work on Wednesday, but I think it's the execution, but it's the approach and scheme as well.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, Big Ten teams are 1-8 this year when they've had to go across 2 time zones for a road trip. What do you view as the biggest challenges of a long road trip like this, and how do you guys overcome that?
Yeah, I don't really see it as much of a challenge that way. I think it's a 4.5-hour flight. It's a couple hours more than Nebraska, and we're going to stay on East Coast time, and I think we got a good plan. We're going to stay on our time schedule, and it, the way that, the time of the game and everything fits kind of how we practice. So, we're not going to look too much into it.
When it's something nobody on this team has really done before, is it something that you have to prepare them for at all?
I don't think so. Again, it's only a couple hours more than Nebraska. So that's kind of how we're looking at it, and not making it a bigger deal than it is.
Whitney Hardy, far left, WCMH.
Ryan, we talk about so many different positions on the defense, but one we never really have to talk about much is the cornerbacks. I mean, just how much of a luxury is it to have a guy on each side who can go one-on-one and shut guys down? Yeah,
and they're going to get challenged this week in a lot of different areas, but, those guys are a big part of the defense, and every little piece matters when you're on defense. But that's a big part of it, and they have a big challenge this week, and good to see Davison get his hands on one last week. That was big, and Denzel got one the week before. So we got to have a great Tuesday practice right here, and know that they're going to look to really challenge our guys on the outside.
Davison specifically, how have you seen him grow? And you mentioned the interception. What is that going to do for? He's very confident, but it makes a difference when you get your hands on the ball.
I think sometimes when you come into a season, you no matter what, you can say don't have expectations, but you do. And when you get that pick like that, it kind of allows you to maybe relax a little bit and not press. So he can just play his game now because he's doing great.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North and the podcast.
Ryan, what do you see from Oregon's defensive front on film? They just seem like they're maybe the most athletic group you guys have seen so far this year.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very good front. Birch is, very, very good. He's very athletic, strong, good pass rusher, good against the run. Harmon, we know, he's from Michigan State. He's playing very, very good football. I mean, they have some good guys up front, so it's going to be a great challenge for our offensive line and for everybody. I think each week, again, it's ramped up, so that's been good. But we're looking forward to the challenge.
Your offensive line, I think most coaches will probably just want to see week-to-week incremental improvement. It seems like you're getting that. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Just how do you feel like now that group's progressed through these first 5 games?
I think there's been improvement, but we're nowhere near where we need to be, or in a situation where we're evaluating their progress. Other than the fact that I think they are getting better every week, and again, it goes back to practice. It goes back to the work they put in the preparation, and it's week to week. You can look great one week, but not on the next week. And I think that's the thing to me that we talked to our team about now, and G. Scott spoke to our team recently about it. And I think it's exactly right. Like every day can look the same, but then when you look back on it, it's not even close to being the same. And so that's what we have to do. We've got to make sure that we're getting better every day, because you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And I think with the offensive line, that's important this week, is that we continue to get better. And the only way to do that is to have a great Tuesday. And so we'll get in here at 2:30, start with the team meeting, and going from there.
Tony Birdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, what's the conversation, the communication with you and Chip to Jim Knowles on what you're seeing with the defense, how you would attack it, where you might be seeing some areas of concern this week?
Yeah, we have staff meetings, and we'll go through different things. We try not to get too much into that, but every once in a while we'll get somebody's opinion from the other side of the ball. So every once in a while I'll go down with the scouts and give them, what I think are some different things that they need to prepare for. But at the end of the day, Jim's the head coach of the defense, and he's going to, run the defense. But it's been good to get feedback from both sides of the ball in those staff meetings. But yeah, it's usually just kind of, 30,000 foot view, kind of conversations.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Obviously, big game for Will, and he's not new to this. He's played in some big games before, but maybe this is a weird way to ask this, but what lets you know that he's maybe ready for this moment?
Well, he came here for a reason. He came here to play in games like this, and he's played in games like this, but he's excited to do that, and his preparation's going to be the same. We always say that it's about us. Now, that being said, we got to be experts at our opponent and know our opponent cold, but it doesn't change our preparation. If our preparation has been, to our standard up to this point, we just need to continue to do what we've been doing. So he's been looking forward to this game. Obviously, we all have been. So when the schedule came out, and so he's going to have a great week of preparation. But there's a reason you come to Ohio State, and there's a reason he came, and for games like this.
Did you evaluate Dylan at all when you guys were searching around in the portal? What do you think of him as a football player?
I think he's a very good player. I think he's played a lot of football. He's experienced. He gets the ball out of his hand quickly. He's accurate. Very accomplished. He's his production speaks for itself, and his numbers overall, his body of work, and I think he's playing very well.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan Tabor played, I think, all but 3 or 4 snaps there at right guard. Did he do something in practice that made you guys think that he should be there for the full Iowa game? And then do you think that's something that you guys are going to keep doing moving forward?
Probably, but we'll see again. We'll keep evaluating on a week-to-week basis, but he is getting better, and we felt like he could handle those guys inside and gave us the best chance in that moment to win the game. So, we'll kind of, again, evaluate it this week, but if he continues to improve and continues to do what he's doing, then it'll look the same.
Jeff Gilbert, Best Pros.
Ryan, you could have drawn any of these 4 teams out west this year. You got Oregon. It turns out this is a really big game this part of the year. What's that mean for your team, for the league, and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I think it's great because you get to control your own destiny because you're playing, the best teams in the league on our schedule, and so that part's great. Every time you're playing one of these teams, you're fighting for an opportunity to go to Indianapolis, and that's important. So there's that part of it. Then there's obviously the playoff scenario. So a lot at stake this weekend, which is exactly the way we want it.
Ryan, both of these quarterbacks, Dylan and Will, are super seniors using that extra year of eligibility. Wondering with Will, where does that extra year show up at all when you watch him and evaluate him? Just what's the value of that extra experience?
It's probably in the preparation and then in game, having experience and not departing your preparation and what you've done to that point. Because I think it's easy when you're a young player, once you get into a game and you get into a high pressure situation, to all of a sudden abandon all your technique. You see that a lot with young players and sometimes young quarterbacks. And so both of those guys have played a lot of football and have the ability to identify what they saw on the sideline, communicate it, and then continue to make adjustments as the game goes on.
Was that something when you were evaluating your options at that position this offseason? Was that a trait or a value that something you saw?
Other than the fact that they had a bunch of snaps under their belt, I mean, it's kind of hard to evaluate something like that. So you're actually in it with them, but both very, very intelligent. And the people, really what you do in that moment is you call people that worked with them. With Seth, Bill O'Brien had worked with them, and you call around and you ask people, hey, tell me about this player. What was that like? People who were in the building. Sam Petito was at Alabama. So you just kind of ask around because there's only so much you can tell off of film and meeting with somebody. But both were very mature and then played a lot of football and came very highly recommended.
Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, kind of off that, when you are evaluating Will and when you get in the transfer portal, you see the big games, the Big 12 title game, the game against Texas last year. Is there anything you can see on film? Obviously, like you said, you need him in-house to see him play firsthand, but anything you see on film that stands out just with him in big games that you think contributes?
Well, I think a big part is his legs, and having the ability to make a difference with his legs. And, you'll always, when you're starting, at the end of a season, you start backwards and kind of almost try to almost reverse engineer the whole roster. And it starts with that, is that, the ability to, use your legs is really, really important because that becomes the X factor, and he can do that. And so it kind of goes from there. And we kind of made that decision and felt like that was important for us. And so then it kind of, went from there, and, all the other things are, for him, his size and his intelligence and his ability to throw the ball and, throw accurately in the red zone, and third down. Those are all really big traits that you need in big games. So I think, we're all still learning about Will because he's only been here for, 6 months or whatever it's been. But we're learning quickly as these games are coming and going.
Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Ryan, you have a veteran team this year. Does that change anything about the way you approach games like this, the way you prepare this week, the way you talk about it? Does that change at all based on the kind of team you have, or is it just business as usual?
I mean, I think you always, try to make sure you identify the things that, fit the team that you have, for sure. But there's a lot of things that are consistent with every week. All of a sudden you don't just change because, it's a quote unquote big game. They're all big. But you want to make sure that you're also, like you said, tailoring it to the guys that you have. And so, if we say it's about us all the time, then it's about us in the games like this, which it is. So we're going to continue with the same routine. Our guys like that routine. And it's our job as coaches to make sure we give them a clean plan that they can go play. They shouldn't be thinking on Saturday night.
Adam King, WBNS 10 TV.
Obviously, a couple Oregon ties on the staff. Chip coached there, but he also coached against them at UCLA, and then with Coach Laughlin. Have you leaned on them at all? Have you learned anything from them about the Ducks, and how much have they helped you guys get ready for this?
Yeah, they have good information, and when you're somewhere, you have a feel for the place, and so good information there. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the players on the field, and who's going to run the football and stop the run and take care of the ball.
Steve Hellwagen, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach, look at their Boise game. I think they had a kick return and a punt return for touchdowns.
They did,
just
yeah.
how critical, as closely matched as your two teams are, that one play in special teams could really decide this. And you guys haven't had to cover a lot of kicks and punts, but maybe this week.
Yeah, every play is going to matter in a game like this, and both returners are dynamic, and I think that's the thing we talk about all the time is the issues are always there, and it can come down to one play, and we say that week in and week out here on Sunday meetings, and now it's for real. So, and you never know when that one play is going to come, but you're right. Every play is going to matter. Every inch is going to matter, in all three phases.
Front row left, Jake Trotter, ESPN.
Yeah, Ryan, your shared experiences with Chip, growing up same hometown, same high school, same college, and then your history together. How has that impacted, the way you work together, relate together, and then trust one another?
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest word is trust. Is that when you have trust, you get through a lot of, wasted time, because you can be direct with somebody and know that you care about them, and no matter what is said, you can kind of put your arm around each other afterwards. I say that a lot because that's it. I think the other thing is having familiarity of just how each other think. You can get through a lot of conversation, revisiting some things you've done in the past. Things that have worked, things that haven't worked, things that you've tried together before, philosophically, all those things I think allow us to work efficiently.
How has he impacted you and your coaching career? You haven't been together all the time, but obviously we're together at UNH.
Yeah, probably the biggest influence in my life in football, just from when it started. In my hometown of Manchester, he kind of was the first one to kind of really get into college coaching, and then recruited me to go to the University of New Hampshire. I kind of shared with him then that I wanted to be a coach, and then he kind of took me under his wing, and then I coached for him, and he helped me get some of the jobs that I got along the way. And I ended up going to Florida because of Dan Mullen, who's a Manchester guy, and then worked with Urban, and then that kind of played out from there. So it kind of gave me my start, and then I worked with him in the NFL for 2 years. So I've been very fortunate to be around great coaches and great mentors, and he was obviously a big part of it.
Joe Nugent, WCMA.
With the Ducks leading the country in completion percentage, what makes them so dangerous in that area?
Well, they get the ball out quick, and Gabriel's very accurate, and they have really good playmakers out in space, and they make you defend the field, from sideline to sideline, and then they take their shots. So they play very, very fast, and so you got to be on your game. and he's a great operator, and he's very talented.
Third row right, Stefan Kreisnick, Cleveland.com.
Following up on Chip there a little bit, you're still pretty young in your coaching career when he got going at Oregon. How much did you kind of watch those games and try to take things from his offense? Because they put up really impressive numbers while he was there.
Yeah, it was a different place. Boston College, just a different grouping of people, and we had Matt Ryan at the time, and it was pretty unique. I think we were top 3 and 4 in the country at Boston College at the time, and so was he. And so that 07, 08 year, runs, both very different offenses, but certainly watched it all just like everybody else did. He's just kind of revolutionizing, football at the time.
Don Taveri, WBNS 10 TV.
Coach, I'm sure didn't feel comfortable Saturday with some of the adversity you faced, but looking back now, are you happy your team faced that adversity and the way they handled it?
Yeah, if we're going to turn the ball over, then you're going to be in a game like that at halftime, and so you're either remembering or you're learning, and we better learn from that. So that was important. But I felt like going into halftime, we had moved the ball well. I think we had just about 200 yards of offense, and we had played very good defense, so we were good that way. But when you turn the ball over and don't convert on a 4th down, there's 3 drives right there, and you're not going to get many at bats, against an Iowa team. So yeah, you got to learn from that experience. We talked about that on Sunday, but great to see us come out and play that way in the second half, which is encouraging coming out at halftime. There was a lot of, like you said, a lot of positivity knowing that we could play that way in the second half, despite, only being up 7-0.
Feel like they're battle tested now? I mean, going into this thing?
Well, we do have a bunch of guys who have played a bunch of football, so that is good, and we know what the challenge was there. But this is a different challenge on the road against, a great opponent. And so, we're going to go swing as hard as we can, and excited about this. So everybody is. And, so fired up to get him back in here in a couple hours.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
3 years ago when you played them, it was obviously kind of a rude awakening for your defense. You made changes after that. All that process ended up with getting Jim Knowles. When you look back at that game, how much of a foundation-changing game did that turn out to be?
Yeah, it was CJ's really second start maybe, and boy, he played his tail off that game, and we just didn't play very good on defense and didn't run the ball and convert on 4th downs, and so that's how you lose games, and so we had to do a better job running the ball and playing defense, and like you said, coming out of games like that, you learn a lot about yourself, and I knew we had something special coming out of that game with CJ. I could see it, and but I knew there were other areas that needed to get fixed, and we worked hard to try to get them addressed.
How different, it's an obvious question, but how different is this defense now compared to that one?
Yeah, I would say it's very different. Different scheme, different players. Yeah.
Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Yeah, Ryan, Oregon's generated more pressure than any opponent you faced so far this season. Just what's kind of, from the small sample size in game, what's your sense of Will under pressure so far this season? I'm sure you see it a lot in practice too. Where does he need to be better in that area?
It's just everything gets ramped up, and we got to make sure that we're doing a great job in protection, knowing that we have a really good front we're going against, and that we're doing a great job of getting open. They're gonna challenge us in coverage, and we gotta create separation, and so everything's a part of that, and the quarterback's a big part of it as well, for sure. The ball's got to come out on time, but it's not easy, but it's as simple as having really good protection, spacing it out, and getting out on time against zone, and winning against man-to-man.
Kind of going off that, with the experience your offensive line has now with the silent count, playing 6 road games last year, how much does that factor into a game like this?
Yeah, it's important to handle the environment, and that's a big part of it. Anytime you go on the road, you got to handle that, and we faced it a little bit at Michigan State, and so we're working on it hard, and we'll work on it hard again this week.
Austin Ward, the podcast.
Ryan, what did you think of Tyleek and his return?
Solid, just getting his hands on people, knocking people back. I thought he and Ty were really good in the game, and along with a few other guys too. But yeah, it was good to get him back inside, and obviously you could feel his presence in there.
I know that you don't want to ask him or anybody to play every snap. When you go to the Rushman package and Larry's thinking about that, from the outside, it looks like he's so dynamic and can collapse the pocket that maybe Tyleek could stay in there for that. Are there discussions about leaving him in some of those situations?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, it kind of almost becomes a snap count issue, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, he can rush the passer with as good as anybody in the country on the inside.
Tim May, Letterman Row.
Thanks, Jerry. Just a housekeeping question real quick. Did Chip ever try to hire you before y'all hooked up with the Eagles?
Yeah, for sure. We had talked about different opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember, did he try to get you to go to Oregon?
Yeah, we definitely had conversations back then. It wasn't a great time for me, but yeah. I just had RJ, and it was early in my career. I didn't want to move across the country, but yeah, we had discussions along the way.
And then after that, you went like that, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. Has Quinshon, have you gotten what you thought you'd get out of Quinshon and Travion to this point from the standpoint, Travion healthy now, the way he looks? Quinshon, I just want your reaction to the way he runs. Is he even more violent, more, headstrong, whatever the word is you want to call it, the way he runs? I mean, the power he brings, et cetera. What's been your impression of that group?
Yeah,
especially Quinshon.
Everything you just said. Yeah, everything you just said. And I think the only way that you can do that is when you have two guys who are team players, who understand, what it means to win as a team. And so we're going to need them both this weekend, and they're both running really hard. And yeah, it's been fun to watch both of those guys improve this year. I think Travion's running really well. I think Quinshon is exactly what you just said. He runs really hard and violent. And, he wants the ball, and so does Trey. But they've been great, and we're going to need them this week. Got to take care of the football and run downhill.
Do you feel like I've done a good job of not having one package for one and one for the other? You understand what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
Is it,
we did.
I'm talking about not doing. You know what I'm talking. Chip.
Yeah.
I asked Chip about that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, they both can do. They both can. They're 3-down backs, so they can protect. They can run routes, and they can run. All the different schemes that we run. Yeah.
Andy Anders, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, you touched on it some already, but just the challenge this Oregon offense presents when you have three receivers the caliber they have and a tight end as good as they have, spacing the field.
Yeah, athletes all over the place, and running backs very good, and so yeah, I mean it's the same thing we're looking for on offense. Is you try to have enough weapons out there that you can't just narrow down on one thing. So. Yeah, I mean, they're going to put you in space and try to spread you out, and so you got to win your one-on-one battles.
Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you were talking about Oregon's offense just now. I think a lot of people still think of it similarly to when Chip was there, but how does Dan Lanning put his impact, especially on the defensive side? What do you see that makes this a Dan Lanning program?
Yeah, I just think over time, it's changed a lot from when Chip was there, and yeah, Dan's got his own style and his own scheme on both sides of the ball, and different coordinators, and but from back when Chip was there, and even before that to where they are now, again, one of the best teams one of the best programs in the country, and they do a great job, and and they play hard.
Does that defense remind you of the Georgia defense you guys saw a few years ago?
I think there's a lot of differences there. I know that you just kind of watch it and you say, well, it's the same tree and everything, but there's some similarities, but there's a lot of differences there as well. And because you try to do everything you can to fit your scheme to what your players can do well, and it's different players, but a lot there's certainly things in common.
And final questions, Tim Hall, 97.1 The Fan.
Hey Ryan, I'm wondering, last year was talked about the rules changes with the clocks not stopping after a first down throughout the entirety of the game. This year, the 2-minute warning has had a pretty good impact. I'm just wondering if you like that being in college football, if that helps you manage your timeouts a little bit differently, especially in the second half.
Yeah, it's different because you do have to manage it different. But and I think the idea was that less TV timeouts. I think we were close to either 5 or 6 TV timeouts in the second quarter of the game the other day. So it's just something you got to handle and deal with, and so you got to keep the guys moving, and that is what it is. In terms of the rule changes with the clock running, I kind of found out today that I think we're averaging 67 plays a game, which is just about 20 some odd plays less than we would have like in 17 or 18. So it is very, very different. That's a lot of football, but that is the game. That's how the game's being played now. So, but again, the game of football hasn't changed. It's just the number of plays and how it's how it's run.
Typically, in a perfect world, do you like to keep all your timeouts in the second half, especially when you're in a huge game like this one coming up?
Well, you want to use them when they both they best maximize your opportunity to win the game. You certainly don't want to use them for organization or something like that. You want to use them to help you schematically or in terms of you working the clock. So, but there's a lot that comes into that. There's a lot of work we do behind the scenes to make sure we're prepared to do that. And you can see kind of how we did it at the end of the first half the other day, and that's all thought out ahead of time to make sure that we're all on the same page on how we're attacking that.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.